you all to the curtain raiser session of the India Climate and Development Partners Meet. Curtain raiser sessionലേക്ക് ഏവരെയും സ്വാഗതം ചെയ്യുന്നു. The Partners Meet over the next 2 days will enable structured dialogue with government stakeholders, global experts, industry, and other stakeholders working on diverse challenges of climate change. It will foster learning and discussion around the benefits of interesting in climate-related policies, infrastructure and services, and enabling scaling of successful examples. I would like to invite Mr. Abbas Shah, Practice Manager, World Bank, to welcome the gathering. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dipti. A very, very warm good evening to everyone. Namaskaram. I wanted to first welcome you to this first India Climate and Development Partners Meet. I guess a question that you might have is, why are we doing this? India is a country of such huge dimensions where each state is like a country in itself. And there are so many varied experiences that are happening across the country. So that's one part of it. The second part is that climate change is happening now. It's not something that, we used to think a few years ago that it's something that will happen in the future. That's not, you can see events across the world. You had a brutal heat wave this summer. You had the devastating floods in Pakistan, but also in the northeast of India, in Bangladesh. So the impacts of climate are here. So the question is, what do we do about it? And what is fascinating about India is that you look across the variety of states, there are so many experiments that are going on. And one experiment right here is our partnership with the state government of Kerala. So first of all, I do want to acknowledge, and with much gratitude, the strong partnership we have with RKI. They've just been a fabulous partner, not just on this meet, but over the last 4 years since the 2018 floods. We've been able to really strengthen this partnership on climate and disaster resilience. So very big thanks to you. But like Kerala, in other states, there are many such experiments that are going on. We want to use this meet and we want to make this an annual event whereby we can have this cross-learning between states. What exactly is good practice? What has worked? What has not worked? To get that dialogue going between state governments, the central government, academia, and civil society, and industry. And India has so much to offer to the rest of the world that we feel that there's a huge opportunity to create this platform for knowledge sharing. So let me stop here. Again, a very warm welcome, and I'm looking forward to a really good set of 2 days of discussion. And what better way to kick off this Climate Partners Meet than to have a youth forum where, to quote Greta Thunberg, we go beyond the blah, 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 and we actually talk about things that can be done concretely, so that after 2 days we have a clear sense of what we call the Monday morning agenda. What are we going to do differently? So with that, let me stop. Dipti, back to you.
Thank you, sir. To start off, we have a curtain raiser session on youth leadership for climate action. Our youth leaders will speak on addressing climate challenges in varied capacities and from varied sectors. We are looking forward to identifying and articulating experiences, best practice models, including specifically the role of the youth in ensuring coherence and mutual reinforcement towards India's updated nationally determined contributions, the NDCS, the LIFE movement, and the Paris Agreement on climate change. To begin, I would like to invite the moderator, Mr. John Room, Regional Director for South Asia Sustainable Development World Bank, and our youth speakers to the dais for the discussion. Let me welcome Mr. Akhilesh Anil Kumar, Director, Bring Back Green Foundation. Mr. Navneet Anush Shah, Product Head, The Solar Labs. Ms. Gavita Gulhati, Founder, Why Waste. Please join the dais for the discussion. Mr. John Rom, sir. I would like to request Mr. John Room to deliver the opening remarks and commence the discussion. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm really excited to be here. Just look around. What a fantastic place to be sitting. We've got the ocean over here. I hear the sunset's great. We didn't see it this evening, but it's great. We've got the backwaters. It's a fantastic place to be. This is one of these moments that I have in my job when I think, hell, you know, somebody's paying me to do this? What better life could you have? But we're not just here, as Abbas said, because this is a nice location. It's poignant that we are here in Kerala for two reasons, or three reasons actually. First one is that we can already see the impact of climate change here in Kerala. Abbas mentioned the floods, but if you look up and down this coastline, you can see the impact of climate change eroding this coast. But it's not just a problem, it's a question of solutions and people stepping up to do it. And again, as Abbas said, the government of Kerala and RKI has stepped up with systemic actions to address resilience, not just to recover from the floods, but to build that systemic resilience. And then the third element of this is partnership between us at the World Bank and the government of Kerala and a whole bunch of other stakeholders, but the opportunity to share some of these ideas. And while that substance is exciting and interesting enough as in of itself, I'm really excited to have this panel here of youth leadership on climate change. I don't know who said it, but it's a quote I've heard often, that the generation that you're sitting here is the first generation that is going to spend the vast majority of their lives dealing with the impact of climate change, and they're the last generation that has any hope of getting emissions down and building resilience. So I'm really happy to be here and to hear what they have to say. I'm going to sit down. There you go. Very good. So welcome. You were introduced by the moderator. What I'm going to do to start with is I'm going to give each one of our participants an opportunity to introduce themselves in their own words. And once they've done that, well, let's do the introductions, and I'll come to the second question later. I'd like to start with Akhilesh, because he's actually the reason that we're here. We had a meeting at COP in Sharm el-Sheikh with what's known as the Max Edkins Climate Ambassador. Max Edkins was a dear friend of mine and a colleague who died in the Ethiopian Airlines crash a few years ago. And in his memory, some youth ambassadors were created. And I had a really great discussion with these youth ambassadors in Sharm el-Sheikh. And one of the questions was, how do we go beyond the blah, blah, blah to start actually incorporating youth ideas in the work we're doing? And we said, okay, we've got this thing in Kerala. Let's walk the talk and get them here. So Akhilesh, why don't you introduce yourself and let us know, why are you engaged in this field and what have you been doing?
Hello. Yeah. Thank you, John. As John said, yes, one of the reasons I'm here is with a discussion that happened at COP, and I'm really, really grateful that he took it forward, and still a lot of discussions that we had is going forward, and appreciate the World Bank for having youth, in this very important discussion as well. To give off a bit of my background, it's very complex, it's very jumbled across because of the space itself, in the way I have to walk in this space. But I think it started exactly around 4 years back, maybe a bit more than 4 years. But I was 18 years old then, and then at that point of time that's when just I stepped out of school, joined a college, and that was in Trivandrum here itself. And then I got to see the Kerala floods at that point of time, and there was me volunteering in a couple of organizations, and then being part of experiencing how the social sector is also trying to involve with people who are affected, but that was mostly with specially able people, and then some other impacted communities, but never mostly with the climate perspective. But then there was this particular cleanup after the Kerala floods in 2018. That was in, I think, September, October. This particular cleanup that happened in Idiki. And that was a 40-kilometer stretch of road that we were cleaning around 100 volunteers. And that was a moment where I saw a couple of things, and then that made me step into this movement a bit more deeper. And one of the things that I saw was we were around 110 volunteers. We were cleaning a stretch of 40 kilometers road for 3 hours. In that 3 hours, we could collect more than 30 tons of plastic waste. And still, there was so much more to go. And we left there pretty disheartened because we couldn't do more. But that was our limit. And that particular cleanup happened because there were a lot of wild animals dying because of the plastic that came after the landslides following up with the Kerala floods. And I saw some, interesting single-use items in particular, and then started my first campaign, which was in December 2018, and then saw that become a success. And then I'm like, okay, I'm not just an 18-year-old who can just sit behind and then look around and be like, okay, I'll just volunteer, do some things, but actually make some impact. The first campaign I started was against single-use plastic straws. I dealt not just on cleanup or something, but we dealt in multiple sites. We understood the manufacturer's problem, we understood the consumer's problem, and then also understood what's the problem that exists with the policymakers. Why is it not being enforced in the policy? What's the gap that exists? That's multiple gaps that exist between the manufacturers, that's coming to the consumers, that's shopkeepers in between, then the politics that's in between that, then the policy making. Trying to make sense of all that and then coming to a solution, I could achieve within a couple of months something that was a bit substantial, but not exactly clearing the whole, solving the whole solution problem, but still make something substantial out of it. And that's what motivated me to, step up again. And then in a couple of months, I had to drop that and go to abroad for my higher studies. But then I dropped that and came back to start my own NGO here in Kerala. And that's called Bring Back Green Foundation. And that's been running for the past three and a half years. So that's a bit of my background. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, Akhilesh. It's interesting when we tell stories about our background, we can often draw lessons. So 3 lessons that I draw from this. Number 1, tackling important issues that matter is what we're here for. Second thing is, success breeds success. In the climate sphere, there's a lot of downers and it's terrible. How do we put this on an upward spiral where we go from small success to small success going forward? And then the third one, you basically summed up the purpose of this meeting. Different stakeholders, understanding different partners and what their issues and challenges are and how you bring them together. Gavita, let's go to you. If you could introduce yourself, but if you could also let us know why you're known as the Water Girl.
I hope this is working. Okay, great. Good evening, everyone. It is a beautiful, beautiful space to be in, completely unexpected. So thank you for having us. And thank you both for bringing us together. I think we owe it to you. I remember Akhilesh came back from COP and I asked him, how was your experience? And he said, there's this very interesting thing that's coming up. And I was like, what's it about? And he's like, wait. And then I got an invite. So I was very excited to be here. I think if I have to go back, my journey began almost 7 years ago. I was 15 in embarking the journey of high school. And I'd taken a trip to Ahmedabad in Gujarat with my family. And we were, traversing these really beautiful step wells. And step wells, as they are a source of water. But that well was dry. And as we were walking by, a little girl ran up to me and she tugged my kurta. And she said, can I have the water in the bottle that you have? And I was, shocked for a second because that's not what anyone has ever asked for. No one's ever asked for water. I gave it to her. She was ecstatic. Her eyes lit up. And there was something in me that stuck with that experience, and I went back. I started reading more and more about the water crisis. I was reading about farmers who were taking their lives due to the lack of access to water, women and girls who were walking miles just to get a glass of water that we often get without even moving a finger. And through all of that information, as a young 14, 15-year-old, I didn't know what to do. And it just so happened that on World Environment Day that year, my environmental education teacher in school, which is, by the way, a rarity, shared a very, very interesting piece of information with us. She said 14 million liters of water gets wasted every year simply in the water that we leave behind in our glasses at restaurants. And I was immediately reminded of that little girl for whom just a few sips of water changed her day. And my teacher then gave me a very interesting anecdote. She said, of all the people who could have seen an apple falling from a tree and questioned why, it was only Newton who did, and that's when gravity was invented. So you need to question, why is this water getting wasted? Why are people wasting it? And figure out the solution to solve it. And that's when I embarked on a journey to solve the urban water crisis, more specifically the overconsumption of water that we as urbanites today have honestly just been born into, at least our generation, whether it be the water that gets consumed in manufacturing every single product. A quick, maybe a shout, we can do it. Does anyone know how much water is consumed in manufacturing a pair of jeans? 1400? I could hear 1400. 10,000. That's a little much. It's about 4,000 liters of water. So I really began to learn more and more. And as I learned more about the crisis, I realized that the reason people don't act towards conserving water is because they don't even know that they're wasting it. So I began Why Waste to change the mindsets of people towards water and build tools to enable every individual to conserve water. Our first campaign was called the Glass Half Full campaign. I would have probably visited over 100 restaurants myself, trying to convince them how on various ways in which they could conserve water, prevent water from getting wasted, etc. And it was an interesting journey. Like Akhilesh was mentioning, there were a lot. It was important to understand their perspective, the perspective we wanted to bring in, the customer's perspective. We ended up partnering with the National Restaurant Association of India, took it to over 5 lakh restaurants. From there, have built a mobile application to help people calculate their water footprint, and continue to build various products to help individuals conserve and be a part of the solution when it comes to saving water.
So thank you very much. Isn't this inspiring? Rest assured, I'm not going to leave any water in the glass after this one. So again, 3 lessons. Number 1, this is about people, the link back to the little girl. Number 2, the power of the killer facts. Use 4,000 liters and 14 million. And number 3, getting out of the mode of just doing analytics and describing the problem and finding a solution. Now, some people once said that water is the vector of adaptation and solar is the vector of mitigation. So, Navneet, what have you been up to?
Okay. So, hi everyone. I'm Navneet. I'm currently the product head at Solar Labs. And for the last few years, I've been working in the solar industry. I strongly believe that solar can bring down the carbon emission that we are having, plus it can help us in achieving the net zero targets. So while working in the solar industry for the last few years, there were some of the problems that we've analyzed in the industry. One thing is that there's a lack of awareness of the benefits of solar, both economical as well as the environmental benefits. Second thing is that there's a lack of digitization in the industry. So the current solar installers, they are not able, they does not have the tools to work on their solar plants and deliver what's the benefit of solar. So, and the third thing that we face is the high upfront cost of solar. So, Government of India has been working on solving the third issue, that is the cost issue, by launching various schemes. So, there is the National Grid Connected Solar Scheme that enables a person, whoever wants to get solar installed, to up to 40% of central finance assistance for a plant up to 3 kilowatt, as well as, but the two issues that I mentioned above, like first one is the digitization, and second is the lack of awareness. That is not currently being catered by the government of India or like any other initiative. So that's where we pitched in. So our startup, like the Solar Labs. So we have built an AI powered platform that enables the solar installer to design the complete rooftop in 3D and do a complete simulation around it. And what its simulation gives is like it provides all the parameters associated with that potential solar plant, like how much economical savings they're going to get, how much environmental savings they're going to get, so that the installer is better able to get the end customer to understand like what are the benefits of solar. So in our journey till now, like for the last 5 years, like we have been in operation, and we are working with more than 1,500 solar installers, and we are currently in 15 countries, and we are trying to expand the empowerment of solar installers all over the world.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So I think it's interesting. One of the things I want to come back to the end is what can youth bring to this debate? And I think you've illustrated one, which is the savviness to tech in to the digital apps world and then link that to what is a much older kind of engagement that you're in. And I think that's really powerful in terms of where we go. Can I move to the next question? I'll start with you, Navneet. If you had one message to give to all of us old folks, what would it be? What is it that's different from your youth perspective that we really need to keep in our mind as we go into the next 2 days of discussion?
Sure. So one of the things that I highly believe is that youth has the power to disrupt the industry. So the complete renewable energy that we have. So from mining of raw materials to procurement to transportation, assembling of solar panels, installation of solar panels, operation management, and then at the end, like reusing or the recycling of solar panels that we have. So similar in other industries like wind energy and all this stuff, there are a lot of inherent inefficiency in the process, and youth can come up with new technologies, new solutions to solve these problems and make the whole process a lot more cleaner, as well as like reduce the cost of energy there.
So the importance of innovation and youth,
Yeah.
bringing that. Gavita, same question.
I'd say let's look at it from an empathetic lens. We, as a generation, have been born into the climate crisis. We weren't a generation that was told that the climate crisis is going to be something that comes up in the future. And so whenever I speak to someone who is perhaps from a generation that came before me, what I ask them to do is empathize firstly with themselves, because we have been born into the climate crisis and we've been molded and we've grown up in a manner where we've seen problems all around us, and so we're constantly thinking of solutions to solve them. The problems that the generations before us were trying to solve were a stark contrast, right? There was growing the economy, there was bringing in better health, so many other different issues that we were tackling. So I think the core of the next 2 days and every problem that we try to look at or try to solve, keep it from an empathetic lens to yourself and to the people around you. Gandhi once said that if you're, and I want to quote him, and this was his advice to the world leaders. He said that if you're ever trying to make a decision and you're stuck, you must always think of the poorest man and see how that decision would impact him or her. And if it does not have a positive impact for that person, then don't make that decision. So I'd say look at it from an empathetic lens and just know that, you know, we are, as we want to be and we can be and are in fact equal supporters in this movement. It's our collective future that we're working towards, and that's absolutely what we want to build.
Okay, so we now have empathetic innovation. Akhilesh, what are you going to add?
I'll start by adding equity. So equity is one of the biggest thing that youth is trying to bring up into the climate space. One thing that we keep forgetting when we have discussions, especially about climate and policies, stakeholders, everything, is sometimes we always forget the human part of it, where we are disconnected from the real humans who are facing the impact. We talk about markets, we talk about a lot of things, we talk about finance, but then at the end, who is the people who are actually facing these? And what the young people have achieved over the past few years is clearly this. The reason we young people are on this stage is because of the pressure that we have made up and built up over the past couple of years. What Greta or a lot of other people have forced governments to, in an order that we have raised our voice in a way that, we are not invisible anymore. We are visible. And our, at COP or whatever spaces it is, young people and their role has become very important, because we have been driving some important conversations, we have been driving some important messages. And the reason why I told equity is one of the things why we miss out the human aspect of it. The young people have been trying to bring up that aspect. The young people have been trying to add these perspectives, add perspectives of people who are in the impacted community. Right now in Kerala, we have a very highly impacted community just next to us, the indigenous coastal community of Kerala, who have been facing coastal erosion and a lot of other issues. And my organization and a lot of other young people within this community have been trying to raise their issue. So it's young people who sort of bring up different perspectives. It's young people who actually try to guide certain conversations and certain narratives so that we go in the right way. Sometimes one of the most important things that we forget again is that the people who are going to negotiate, or the people who are actually making or drafting these decisions, are not going to last a long time until where we are going to take those places. And why young people is important in the decision making processes or to be involved is because of the fact that this is such a unique crisis that we are facing, where extinction is at what we are facing. So it's we have to have that space to be involved. And it's not that we are bringing that childishness along with us, but there are a lot of people like Gavita and a lot of other people who have had immense conversations with, who have immense knowledge in their expertises that they can provide input on, which can actually drive better policies or better ways in which we can tackle the climate crisis. So these are the few things. Yeah.
So you raised equity. So we've got empathetic innovation for equity, focusing on the most disadvantaged. Can you maybe elaborate? You talked about this coastal community, and I understand you did a documentary about this community. Can you talk a little bit about why, of all of the good ideas and things that you focused on, you decided to move down this road of a documentary and education? What do you see the role of this, and why did you choose that?
So documentary was one part of it. So one of the reason I even did that documentary is because of what I saw visually. This place is visually stunning, but the people who are impacted, I can give you numbers where not very far from us, maybe just like 5-10 kilometers from us, there are people who are actually living as refugees in go downs, in schools, and they have faced coastal erosion. They have lost their livelihoods, they have lost their homes. There is this particular school that actually motivated me to make a documentary about it. And all the documentaries I have made, all these storytelling narratives that I have done it taking the sides of everyone, every stakeholder that's involved. So not just the affected community, but what's the side from the policy people? What's the stand of the minister or the MLA of this of that place, and what are the interventions they are doing? All these stakeholders' perceptions are being captured. And coming back to why I did it is because we did a field study. I think this was on the second year of my organization. Somebody reached out to say, okay, there's a huge issue going on here. Can you come and can you check what's happening here? We came, and one of the reasons we came was because there was my favorite beach is actually a place called Shangamugam Beach here. And when I was in 2018, I remember in my college days, going around, and it used to be so wide. It used to be, so open. We used to play around. But then, fast forward 1.5 years later, that beach is completely gone. That beach has been completely eroded. There's a huge impact where, there is the roads had to be shut down, and that road feeds to the domestic airport. There's so much that was going on, and then we said, okay, if the beach is something that caught my eye because I don't know what's happening with the community, and then I'm like, okay, what's happening with the community? Then we went, and the sights we saw were like really, really, heartbreaking. And then the sights I saw is not being seen by a lot of other people. A lot of people see the beach because it's a tourist destination, and then a lot of people, okay, that was something, that's a place I went to, but it's now destroyed. Now I can't go there. Okay, that's the only relation that they have with climate change, but they don't see the community. And then that's when I went onto the field. I walked like, I think, 10 kilometers that day all across this coast, along with our volunteers from my organization, the community members. We did a joint field study, and then we went to a particular school, a old school where there are like 5-6 classrooms, and then inside those classrooms there are people, so many people who lost their homes because of coastal erosion, cyclones, and a lot of other climate change related activities. And they have been stuck there for a long time, still now, since the past 3.5 years. And then I was like, okay, this is the visuals I am seeing. How can I communicate it with the rest of the people? Because they are disconnected from it. And that's when I had to do a documentary. So, the people who are actually disconnected can understand, okay, this is something that's happening right in front of us, but we don't know.
So you're talking about making the invisible visible to people who are already there. Navneet, you've stepped into the solar field, and clearly you've been very successful in moving. What role do you see more generally to the youth to get into this business sphere, and what advice would you give them?
Okay, all right. So one of the fields that are currently like upcoming is how do you recycle solar panels. Currently, the waste that is there in solar, like that is not that much, but because solar panel has a life of around 25-30 years, but the waste will be upcoming in the next 5-10 years. The infrastructure for that is not ready right now, either in US, in China, or in India. That's not there. In EU, like they have made some legislation where any solar panel manufacturer, they have to have some component of the solar panels being recycled from the old solar panels. So some of the things like there has to be some sustainable businesses, so they are sustainable both like financially as well as ecologically, and they have to come up to bring these solutions forward. That is one of the very key area that's coming up. Second area is the actual installation and the operational management part of solar. So currently, things not very structured in solar industry if you talk about it. There's one solar installer, you call to them, and then they're, okay, like this is my code, and this is what I'm going to charge to you. I'm going to install solar at your house. And solar has a life of 25 to 30 years. Who is going to provide you the warranty for that one? In case something goes bad, in case there is a hailstorm and your panels broke down, what's going to be happening now? The actual operational management part is where the actual profit of the plant lies. Because there has been a lot of greenhouse gas emissions by constructing solar panels, and there has not been a capital investment in solar. But if you don't run the panels for 5 or 6 years or more than that, you're not going to get those values back now. So that is something that needs to be currently worked upon by the industry. Things are improving day by day, but that's something that youth can come into and disrupt as an industry.
So that's really interesting description of the solar industry with a rich coverage from the disposal to the installation to the warranties. All of that is good. I probably tease you a little bit. You sound more like a 45-year-old when you say that. So what is the specific youth angle that you would see? Someone says, okay, I'm young, I want to get in. What's their comparative advantage in getting into this crowded field?
Tech is the competitive advantage. So some of the technologies like drone imagery, thermal imagery, those are being currently used upon for operational management tasks. So let's suppose a panel is not performing well. Why is that so? Conventional method for that is you send an engineer and he spends 1 or 2 days to identify like what could be the possible cause for it, tries to solve it. He won't be able to find it because like those are just normal electricians that we have at home. But new technologies like how youth are coming up with that is like there has been research on okay, when a particular panel is not performing, that gets a little hot. So there you can use thermal imaging to detect okay, this particular panel is not performing. I can just change it, and that has now become a new industry altogether. Similarly, like simulations, like if you go back even 5 or 6 years, there were no good tools for solar simulations. A person, if you are a solar installer, you won't be able to convince your end customer like why should install solar, how much payback you will be getting, how much greenhouse gases you are like the reduction GHGs. So you won't be able to explain those numbers. But now like there are so good tools that almost accurate data can be predicted using simulations. So these like some other new technologies like drones. So the aerial site surveys and like how the solar plant needs to be installed and after the installation. So operational management is being done via drones for large solar parks or things like that. So new innovative solutions should be brought into technology. One thing is for the AR VR because like one of the hesitant factors for a residential homeowner is that how it's going to look at my rooftop. So AR VR is coming into the picture now, where the person can just place the mobile phone and see, okay, this is how your solar panel is going to look like. So yeah, like similarly, there are a lot of new technologies that can come up to solve all these issues.
Excellent, thank you. Kavita, can I turn around to a slightly different question? Since you opened up the door on empathy and your individual action, if we want to think about how do we encourage individuals to step out of their comfort zone to operate in a broader society, what advice do you have for mindset, self-care, developing habits to maintain that tenacity and that energy over time? Is it just something you're born with, or are there habits and things that you can develop and that people can develop in order to drive this?
Oh no, it's very much developable. In fact, anyone who has picked it up, including me, has developed it. I'd love to highlight two things here. One, what is it that you can do in your personal life? And the second, what you can do in your professional life? Today, and as you've asked me, we are focusing on what can I do as an individual. So I look at two things, your personal life and your professional life. Let's start with your personal life. And also will probably deflect the life movement that we've been talking about, lifestyle for environment. The first job truly is to empathize with yourself that perhaps the way that I'm living today is not very sustainable, but that's okay because I'm going to start taking small steps to live a more sustainable life. How am I going to start taking those small steps? Is by understanding what my environmental impact today is. Try to learn and understand what your carbon footprint is, what your water footprint is, and what are those various things that you are doing in your everyday life that are probably contributing towards damaging the planet. Something as simple as, I also didn't know this for the longest time, but if I was buying a pair of jeans, it was a huge damage to the planet, not just in terms of the water consumed, but the ecosystems where it was being manufactured, the emissions, all of it. It's not. So try to look at every aspect of your life from what perspective is perhaps this damaging the planet, and slowly try to change your ways. And I really like to parallel this to the health apps that exist in the world, where they start, where you shouldn't, they say you shouldn't like start exercising a lot from the first day. You shouldn't start, stop eating all food from the day you decide that you want to lose weight. The way you do it is by slowly reducing your calories. You do it by slowly increasing your exercises. Do the same thing. If you're someone who takes a 15-minute shower today, slowly start by cutting that down to 10 minutes and then to 5 minutes. Then perhaps move on to a bucket and then half a bucket, and you'll actually realize that much water is enough. Take your time to get there, but take those steps to start moving there. And that starts with understanding what your impact truly is. So that's at the personal level. At the professional level, something that I truly believe is that the world was created by a lot of different people who come with a lot of different mindsets and who are doing a lot of different things. You have lawyers, doctors, engineers. And so why is it that we expect just a specific small group of sustainability leaders to solve all the problems when the problems that have been created by everyone together? My perspective there is that what we need to do is not just look at green jobs, but look at the greening of jobs, where what each and every one of us does can be done in a more sustainable manner. So going back to my jeans example, if I'm someone who is figuring out how to design, manufacture jeans, can I figure out ways to do it in a more sustainable manner? Can I figure out ways to cut down that water consumption, which I've actually seen people are working on today and have been successful with as well. So bringing in that perspective, no matter what you do, because each of us are truly passionate about something, but choose to add value towards a better and more sustainable world via the work that you're already doing. And of course, support those who are in the ecosystem already, work together collectively to build that change. I think sustainability and a sustainable world is achievable only when each and every one of us incorporated both into our personal and professional lives. The businesses that are here today are not going to go, and the goal is to change the way that they function in order for us to build a more sustainable world. And I'd leave with, one simple example and how we are so capable of doing and building this change. We as citizens refused to use plastic straws. That's what compelled businesses to create steel straws and paper straws, and governments began creating policies around banning them and finding alternatives. So that's the power that our choices hold, and that's the power that our actions in our daily lives can actually impact.
So I think this is great. Listening to you all, what I hear is leadership, innovation, drive. You're moving it forward. But if you ask some people in the general public about your average 22-year-old and what they're worried about, you hear slightly different stories and stereotypes. Either sort of rich, self-indulgent people looking at TikTok and figuring out where to go to the next club, or someone that's just trying to survive because their parents don't have a job and they're trying to scrounge something together in order to feed their family. Are you exceptions? Or is there a bigger group of youth out there that are keen to get involved in this area? And if so, what role can you play in mobilizing a bigger group of youth, not just a small activist group? Akhilesh, why didn't you start and then let's hear from the others?
Yeah, I think I just needed to add a bit more to what Garvita said, and I think it will come together as well. Garvita addressed the side of the personal choice, where we can do it ourselves. But even with the example of the straw, I see the biggest issue is even when we try to do it, we feel frustrated and then feel guilty because the system doesn't support when we are trying to actually do it. So if you're going to completely avoid using single-use plastic all of a sudden, the system is not exactly in shape in a way that from tomorrow onwards, if you're going to be completely no plastic, you're going to suffer. You're going to be so much frustrated, you're going to be feeling guilty at the end of the day, because there are the alternatives has to be there in the market. It has to be scaled. It has to be with everybody. It has to, that system, if it's lacking, then we will just feel really bad and then let it go. So there's a lot of people who actually try to be sustainable, but because there's no supporting system that helps them, they let it go. And that's something I do as well, or a lot of people I know do as well, because at the end of the day, if I am really thirsty and then if I have no other option and I didn't bring a steel bottle with me, I can't just die. I have to drink from a plastic bottle. But that shouldn't mean that I should be rid with that guilt forever, because that's also a narrative that is being pushed around where, it's just the consumer's responsibility. It's not. While we also try to take action, while also, like Garvita said, while we try to push to the fact that we are going to shift to sustainability. We can pressurize, but that system has to change to support us if we have to really do that. Otherwise, it's going to collapse, and then we are going to be starting the cycle again and again and again. And I have seen that happen in real life when I tried with plastic straws. I have seen, the challenges that exist when suddenly a ban comes in place and there is no system to support it. That's what happens a lot of times when you ban things all of a sudden without the alternatives in the market, or when you don't have, everybody given the proper capacity. They haven't been trained, they haven't not been made understand how this new system is going to work. It's just going to collapse, and then again, the next year you're going to ban it again. That doesn't work. So you have to systematically change it, and then only, while we also try to push for it, we'll be able to actually push through. So while our lifestyle is being changed, that pressure has to form, and that we have to work with groups to actually make the system change as well, and not just stick with the narrative that it's only the fault of the consumer. So we have to address both the side. And then, just coming to your question, this is because I just addressed this because this is something that was very important. Young people, there's a lot of young people who want to join the movement. There's a lot of young people who might not have the privilege to be part of this movement, but they can, support in a lot of other ways. They just don't have to massively be part of activism, or they don't massively have to start their own NGO to actually do help change for the better, but they can do small steps. One can be individual action, one can be pushing for policymakers as well as other stakeholders that's in the system to actually make a change. And that you can do with existing groups or existing platforms. So, like maybe participating in Garvita's, application and the way her campaign was. There are several other campaigns. There are several other movements. There are so many initiatives that people can just join into and then contribute. That won't take much of their time, but given if they have a background where they're not able to actually do it, they still might be able to contribute in the least amount possible. And still, as I mentioned, guilt shouldn't be there. Guilt is something that we should get rid of if the young youth movement also has to move forward and actually become successful.
Very good. So I have a slightly different take on that one. So if you want to include youth,
It's good to have a difference of opinion for a change. Good.
yeah. So if you want to include youth into the picture, so one thing that they need to have is opportunity. So opportunity to work on somewhere that they actually believe. So let's suppose they want to work in a particular sector. So where they can solve the problems in that particular sector. So they can identify, okay, these are some of the things that I can solve or create businesses out of it. Or it doesn't always have to be an NGO. There can be a sustainable solution that could happen to a problem. And that is where I guess we should push more toward. So more innovation, innovative solutions, if you can find to a problem, that will be better. Plus, some kind of so for youth, there are two things. One is an opportunity. Second is the satisfaction that they are getting from what they are working towards. So if the current youth is more towards, we want to work towards this thing. We are more, we are passionate about solving this problem, and we can relate to it. So in some way, if we can facilitate that part, that could be the huge disruption that we can have.
Kavita.
I'm going to grab from both of them and try to, also consolidate my thoughts with that. What I believe takes to make that or be a part of that movement in a larger way or in the manner that we are is a little fire. And sometimes there is a lot of excitement. You have the wood, you have all of the material, but you don't know how to light that fire. And I began seeing that in, some young people who would come and speak with me. So I told them, why don't you spend some time working with our team? I know maybe you want to solve problems in a different sector, right? Maybe it's mental health, maybe it's energy. But come work, try to understand, see what we're doing. And it's extremely incredible how more than half of the people who worked with us have moved on to actually start their own initiatives. And they might be in starkly contrasting, fields, but they've done it because they saw that spark being lit, because they saw what it feels like to create that impact. So when you get that feeling once, you want to keep getting it again. There's this very incredible book called Factfulness that I happened to read about 3 years ago. It's by Ola Rosling and Hans Rosling, and an incredible book just talking about understanding the positivities of the change that we've built to continue pushing us to make more and more of it. And I think you touched upon it in the beginning as well. We need to start looking more at our wins. And that's what we need when we want to become activists as well. We need to acknowledge our wins. We need to accept it. We need to feel great about it so that we can go and get more wins rather than feel, of course, there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of problems, but till the time we don't take just a few minutes to celebrate those small wins, we're not going to get the energy to solve the bigger problems that exist. Even if you solve a big problem, sometimes you feel like, oh my God, there's an even bigger problem. So what am I going to do about this now? Take a few moments to appreciate how the work that it took to get there, and use that momentum to fuel you towards solving the next problem and keep making it bigger and bigger, keep innovating larger, and with every experience that you have, you're going to be able to contribute better to the next problem that you try to solve.
So thank you. I think that what you've pretty much done, all three of you, is to illustrate anecdotally what leadership actually means. And that's really very, very happy, very pleased to see. I know that I'm now standing between all of you and dinner, which is the place that a moderator absolutely doesn't want to be in. But it's been a great discussion. What I would like to do is to give you each 1 minute to answer any question that I didn't ask. So what other point would you like to make in 1 minute in order to close it out?
So, in 1 minute, I'm not pretty sure, but I'll just say something that this shouldn't stop here. Over the next 2 days as well, these perspectives should be carried forward. Not exactly maybe our perspectives might be right, but the perspective of having youth inclusion as well as thinking about, okay, who's going to suffer the most? And having those sort of perspectives added into the dialogue or while those discussions are being taken forward, and not just for this particular event, but that's something that has to be carried forward for everything. And that's very important, and that's very crucial, and that's how we are going to slowly build up that momentum as well as build up that conversation. And it's only through that conversation and slow build up will we be able to actually make that difference. And I really appreciate World Bank for taking that step as well. So I really want World Bank to actually take it forward, and as a very powerful institution have those discussions involved in the future as well in every aspect that you work on.
Okay, so this is just the start. Okay, Navneet.
Okay, so all right. So one of the things what comes next. So what is there in the future? So if you see there is a vision that all the youth sees that we might be able to change all this stuff. Like we are able to bring a change in the society. So everyone should be able to vision that part. Okay, like what will the future gonna look like, and what we have to do to achieve that part. So that is something like from energy, from sustainability, from water, everything has to come together to build that particular future.
I'd say learn and figure ways to build more bridges. So for example, when people come and conserve water on our app, we get the X liters conserved. We actually go and build capacity in places where there isn't access to water via recharge wells, etc. Right? So build bridges, bridges between urban and rural life, bridges between businesses and people. That is what is going to bring about the change that we need to see in the world. Everyone at some level is not going to be equipped to understand climate change or to understand understand the problems that we face. So it is truly the duty of us who do understand to push via the right mediums, right? Whether it is going to these big businesses and telling them to make their business more sustainable, which automatically makes everyone consuming their products sustainable. So it is look at those bridges that you can build, and second, always remember that the economy is the ecology. Every single note that we have today literally comes from the planet, is a part of the planet. We need to learn how to live more symbiotically with the planet. Today we have a very, very parasitic existence. Try to start incorporating that into your life. Take it to people around you, support those who are, and slowly build it into everything that you're doing.
Excellent. So thank you very much. I just want to wrap with a few things. So first of all, I want to thank you all for giving us food for thought that I think we can keep in our minds as we go through the next 2 days in the short term. I do think that there are huge opportunities for better engagement of youth in the climate space and in the dialogue. But as I mentioned when we met in COP, young people are not just smaller clones of old people. I think you bring certain skills and attributes with a comparative advantage that I think we should think about in terms of how we can use those insights and how you can exploit them. So what am I talking about here? Number one is you've got this longer term perspective. Okay, you've got the sense that it's your generation that's got to fix it, so you're looking to what that longer term solution is. Secondly, technology and innovation. This is something that you can bring, because if you look at anything, either institutional, decreasing solar prices, batteries, EVs, institutional reform, these changes are going to happen. Innovation coming from young people, partly through technology, is an important piece. You all talked in different ways about systemic multi-sectoral solutions. Everything you talked about was not in one sector. And my sense is that young, and certainly young, educated people, are now thinking in a much more integrated multi-sectoral way than the way we were trained when we were younger, which is much more single sector, which I think is part of the solution. And you've talked about empathy, care for the excluded, which brings that social dimension, which is very important, not only as a bigger picture policy issue, but how you work with others. So I just want to thank you all very much for the contributions you've made. From the World Bank side, we're very committed to work with this. As Akhilesh knows, I've created a youth advisory body that will advise my management team and bring youth perspectives to bear so that we take this to the next generation. And I have no sympathy and no time for just doing the window dressing and the nice politically correct stuff. It's because I can see an opportunity for young people to help shape these debates in the future, and that's what we'd like to capitalize on. So audience, please thank our wonderful guests. And dinner is waiting. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, John. Thank you, John Doom sir, and your youth speakers for the very interesting deliberations. Ladies and gentlemen, may I now invite all for dinner. This dinner is hosted by the World Bank. Before we head to dinner, I would like to inform everybody that we have thematic sessions scheduled for the next 2 days. They are National and Subnational Leadership for Inclusive and Resilient Growth, Reinvigorated Role and Priorities of a Leveraged Bank, Key Takeaways from COP27, Operationalizing Community-Level Climate Resilience in India, Building People-Centric Climate Information and Weather Services, Bolstering Multilateral Action Towards Climate Resilience, and Promoting Thermal Comfort Through Climate-Smart Investment. So, we look forward to seeing you tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. at the Leela Kovalam to commence the plenary sessions of the meet. The registrations will begin at 8:30 a.m. It has been a great start and a wonderful evening with you all. Again, thank you, good evening and goodbye. Shubharatri.